again. Becky Christofferson here, and today we're going to take our first look at writing notes and how they relate to the violin. So when we write notes, we use what's called a musical staff. It's made of 5 lines and 4 spaces. And at the beginning of this staff, we put a clef that indicates the register of the notes. So a treble clef is for higher notes. A bass clef is for the low notes. So on the piano, the treble clef is generally used for middle C on up, and the bass clef is generally used for middle C on down for the lower notes. For the violin, we use the treble clef exclusively, where lower instruments such as the cello and the bass would use the bass clef. So we represent the sounds on our instruments by drawing notes on the lines and the spaces on the staff. So for instance, on the violin, our open A is represented on the second space. From there, it simply follows in the order of the alphabet, alternating lines and spaces. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And those are all of the notes. We only have 7. So after the 7th note, it goes back to A. At this point, I've run out of lines and spaces. I'm on the top space. Notice that I'm not on a line because when the note is on the line, it actually has the line intersecting the note. So this is on a space. So in order to go one note higher for that A, I'm going to draw my own line and draw a note on it. That line is called a ledger line. And I can use ledger lines when I need to go above the staff and when I need to go below the staff. I can simply extend the range of the staff by adding these additional ledger lines. So on the violin, our open A is here. So B is 1, C is 2, and you may remember that we've been using C sharp in our finger pattern. So a sharp looks like a hashtag, and then D is 3. Then our E string notes are higher than our A string notes, and they begin here. So the E is the open, the F is the 1, and again, you probably remember we're using F sharp. Our 2 is G or G sharp, and then our A is 3. So when we're playing our ladder song and we're going from open A up to 3 and back again, these are the notes that we're using. And when we're on open E going up and back again, these are the notes that we're using. If we put all of the notes together when we're going from A to A, using our F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, that is known as the A major scale, which we will play. And so every note can have a scale. It just means that you're playing steps from your first note, 8 notes, until you return to the same note. So if I was going to start on D, I would end on D. If I start on G, I end on G, and that would be a G major scale. I'm also following a certain pattern of half steps, like the C sharp and D where our fingers touch and there isn't a note in between, and whole steps like B and C sharp where the fingers don't touch and there is a note in between. But we will get into that much more later. So then let's take a look at our D string and G string. These notes are much lower So for open G, I need 2 ledger lines below the staff and a space. So there's my G. After G is A, B, and C. So that would be open 1, 2, and 3. And no, we're not going to use B sharp for quite a while. Then for the D string, so that's the G string. For the D string, we have open D, E, we do use F sharp in our beginning finger patterns, and G. So those are the D string notes. So you can see that if the notes are low on the violin, they are also low on the staff, and then they get gradually higher until you're on your E string, which is high on the staff. So there's a worksheet on this web page that helps you draw the notes yourself and just practice gaining this knowledge. The other component of reading music is the beat and the way we subdivide the beat into rhythm. So typically, we would say that the quarter note gets 1 beat. And the quarter note is represented like this. So we could say simply ta, 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 and express our 4 beats, or we could count them as beat 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I have 4 beats in my measures, I'm going to write a 4 on top, and the quarter note is getting the beat, so I'm going to write a 4 on the bottom. And this is called a time signature. So I have my 4 beats, so I'm going to organize them by putting a line after them. And that has created 1 measure of 4 beats. So this is called a measure line, or it can also be called a bar line. And this can also be referred to as a bar. So I can take this beat and I can cut it in half. When I do that, it takes 2 notes to equal 1 beat. And these are called eighth notes. And these were called quarter notes. So to have 4 beats of eighth notes, I'm going to need 8. I can draw these individually, so then the beam becomes a flag, but it's common practice that when we have more than 1/8 note, they are beamed together. So I still have 4 beats, even though I have 8 notes. So to express the halfway point of a beat, we use the word and, which we can also represent with the ampersand. And just as we were saying ta, 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 we can also express these ti, 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 ti. It's just a way of being able to express the rhythm without having to think about the beat numbers and the fractions. So I can subdivide again. So instead of having 2 beats in a beat, 2 notes in a beat, I can have 4 notes in a beat. Notice that I don't need to write a new time signature because I'm still technically in the same piece. So these are called 16th notes. And they are twice as fast as the 8th notes, which of course are twice as fast as the quarters. So it's going to take 16th notes to equal my 4 beats. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. I still have my halfway point for the and. And now to express the notes that subdivide the 8th notes, I'm going to use the letters E and A. So 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3 E and A, 4 E and A. So of course when we write music, we don't have one measure of exclusively quarter notes and one measure of exclusively 8th notes and one measure of exclusively 16th notes. We can mix them up any way we want. So for instance, in the rhythms that we've already played, we've been playing ti, ti, ticka, ticka, and we've been playing ticka, ticka, ti, ti. And we can borrow from all of the other rhythms as well. So then, if we want longer notes, a half note will give us 2 beats. So it takes 2 half notes to make an entire measure. So here's our 1. The 2 is there, but we're not going to make a new sound on it. Here's 3. And again, the 4 is there, but we're not going to make a new sound on it the way we did here. And if I want 1 note for all 4 beats, it's called a whole note. And these were half notes. So working backwards, the names quarter, 8th, and 16th note come from the relationship to the whole note, not to the beat. So an 8th note doesn't get 1/8 of a beat. An 8th note gets 1/8 of the whole because it takes 8 8th notes to get a whole measure. It takes 2 half notes to get a whole measure. It takes 4 quarter notes to get a whole measure, 8 8th notes for the whole measure, and 16 16th notes for the whole measure. So the names make a lot more sense when you relate it to the whole rather than to the beat. So again, there are worksheets on the web page to practice these names and also to practice the rhythms. So let's just hear what they sound like. I'm actually going to go backwards so that you can work from the whole. So the whole note would get 4 beats, 1 note held for 4, 1 note held for 4. Half notes get 2 beats, 1 note held for 2. Quarter notes get 1 beat. 8th notes are twice as fast. And 16th notes are twice as fast. So if you really want to challenge, a very good game to practice the relationships between these rhythms is to take 1 foot and tap your whole note. 1, 2, then the other foot with the half notes. 1 hand with the quarter notes. And the other hand with 8th notes. And then say 16th notes. Ticka, ticka, then you are truly a one-man band.